My guest today is Melissa Talago, and she is a serial entrepreneur and portfolio careerist with a single-minded passion to live a life less ordinary. She runs Hoomin, providing content marketing and communications leadership to tech companies. She's also the founder of Glamoraks, a global community for women who hike. She wrote a book on how to divorce amicably, and in her spare time, she works for adventure travel company Water by Nature, taking guests on sailing trips. And it's absolutely delightful to welcome you back to the podcast, Melissa.
Thank you very much for having me again.
You were a very early guest, and we talked then mostly about Glamoraks, didn't we? So lots has happened since you were that very early guest. So, do you want to give us a little whistle stop tour, bring us up to date? What's been going on?
Okay, so I can't remember when we spoke first. It was probably, I don't know, 2018-ish. I don't know.
About that,
And
yeah.
so quite a lot happened. At the time, I was running my own business, doing marketing, and I was running Glamoraks, this global women's walking community. And then my husband asked for a divorce, and it all suddenly spiraled. The life that I thought I was going to have, like a normal family life, 2 kids, just suddenly seemed to come to a crashing end. And I had to start all over again. And it wasn't what I planned. And actually, I was vehemently opposed to divorce because my parents got divorced. And it was a shock. However, I was decided, well, I have to just get on with it. So I did. Within a very quick space of time, I sold my house, bought a new home, and had to get a proper job, because I couldn't work for myself anymore with the inconsistent income. So I started basically from the ground up, at the first time ever working in a company. I'd always worked agency side, and I went back into technology, which I hadn't been in for over 15 years. And I basically started at practically an intern level. And in that time, I had to try and get my teenage sons, back on track. We faced COVID. I went into a whole period of online dating, which was a whole story into itself. And then I rapidly sort of went up the career ladder, and became, from basically being very junior to being global head of content marketing and thought leadership for this big global company in 90 countries. And it was an incredible learning experience, honestly, amazing. And I felt completely empowered that I had managed to go from being this quite sort of very sad little woman who had been, had this divorce, to being earning my own way, owning my own house. I'd managed to meet someone new. Everything was great. But I went into a complete burnout phase. By the end of 2022, I was exhausted. I hadn't really stopped. And so I resigned and I went backpacking, interrailing. And since then, life's got less consistent, but far more interesting. And I think what I really would like to talk to you about, and anyone listening about, is this idea of how to live a life more interesting, or how to live a life less ordinary. And some people sort of take offense to that, because they go, well, ordinary, are you saying my life's boring or whatever? It's not that. And I'm not saying anyone needs to be, they have to summit Everest or take on extreme adventures. It's more about, if you are unhappy with your life in any way, shape, or form, what little steps can you take every day to make it slightly more interesting? So yeah, we can explore any of that you want to, but that's what is a brief summary of what I've done since about 2018.
And I love that about you. I remember when you, because I follow you on social, obviously, and when I saw that you had up sticks and were going backpacking, I just thought this was so brilliant, And I thought it was so brave, but it was also so, well, it was very inspiring. And I think what I love about you is that you come up with these ideas and you just go for it. I mean, there's probably a lot of thinking in the background, but it looks from the outside as if, you've just thought, I want to do this. So
Yeah.
you do it. And there's an energy to that, which I love. And I think that's why I really wanted to have you back on and to share that, because there's an energy to everything that you do. And yet, clearly, you've had all of this drama in the background, so, and we all have aspects of that drama.
Yeah.
Sometimes we like life to be a little bit more ordinary, don't we? Actually, not ordinary, um but it's about the good ordinary, I suppose, and the good,
Yeah.
having the consistency on the one hand, perhaps, but being able to embrace the challenges and the
I,
excitement that we can generate
I think what I
ourselves.
saw was on some of the early walks with Glamoraks. I think you were even on one of them. We did the beachhead one.
Yes,
And
we
yeah,
did, didn't we?
and
Yes.
and I think what I heard when I was listening to women as they were talking and walking, they were all sort of midlife age. And what I heard were consistent stories. So either had a relationship ending, their marriage of a long time was coming to an end, or they'd never been married and they were really, I really want to do this now. Or they had empty nest and their kids were leaving home, and the person they had always been, mom, suddenly they had to redefine themselves. Their career, they'd either not had a career because they'd been raising kids and now they were like, I want to go and do something, or they'd been working their backside off trying to develop this career and they'd just reached burnout stage and like over it. And then the other thing that I heard, which really shocked me actually, was how many women lived their life exclusively for other people, either for their kids or their husbands or their parents or whatever society expected of them. And I didn't expect that for my generation. I expected it for the previous generation, but I didn't expect it for Gen X, which is what I am. And I was like, why are these women why are they not doing things for themselves? Why are they not feeling brave enough or empowered enough? And so for me, it was about, well, just do stuff. And I'm not brave. I don't think of myself as being brave or extreme adventurer. But if I describe some of the things I've done, other people will say, but you are. But I think the difference is that I just decide I'm not really happy with the way things are. I can make a choice. I can either sit with this and complain about it, or I can do something about it. And with my job, I'd really worked hard to get to that position and to really develop this career, and I was doing really well. And the traditional line would be keep following this, keep growing, going up the ladder, all of this stuff. But it didn't hold interest to me. I felt I was about to turn 50 at that point. I was about to turn 50 and I was exhausted and I wanted to do something to mark the year of turning 50. And I thought I had one child on a gap year already, another one away at boarding school. I had the freedom and luxury to go and do this. I was lucky enough to have savings that I could go and do this. And so I just decided, it wasn't a quick decision. It took a lot of thinking, but eventually I was like, hit send the resignation letter, do it. And then I just said, right, I'm going to go do this. I told my sister who lives in New Zealand that I was doing it. And so she was like, okay, I'll resign too. So she did. And she came with me. And,
Oh, wow, I never knew
we
that.
bought Interrail tickets. And I barely get to see my sister because she lives on the other side of the world. And what was going to be a solo adventure, which I was quite excited about, to be honest, because I like solo travel. I suddenly got this time, 3 months of dedicated time just to be with my sister and to go and
Oh,
backpack, literally with a backpack, staying in cheap and cheerful places. And we did lots of the Balkans, like, Serbia, Bosnia, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, all of these countries that I would never have chosen to go on a holiday to if you have a limited amount of holiday time. But now I had the freedom and luxury to go and explore and just live. And honestly, it was exceptional. It really was amazing. So, and I guess the flip side of it was when I came back. Well, between doing that, I then went to the Grand Canyon and did whitewater rafting with my boyfriend, and that was another epic adventure and definitely out of my comfort zone. But when I came back, I thought it'll be easy. I'll walk into a job. I've got all this experience. Hello, newsflash. I'm now over 50, and all of a sudden, ageism was alive and well, and I did not get a look in. I must have applied to over 80 jobs, and I just didn't get anywhere. And so what I was doing is I was contracting back to my old company. And then I thought, well, if I'm doing it for them, I can do it for other people. So I set up my business Hoomin, which was trying to help technology companies sound more human in the way that they do marketing. And since then, I've just been, I've had loads of work. I'm probably earning about the same as I was when I was working full time, but I'm working part time. And I now have the freedom to go and be a deckhand on the sailing trips that my boyfriend runs with his adventure travel company. So I get to have like the best of both worlds. So I guess my point is sometimes you have a scary thing happen or you make a decision to do something scary, but ultimately other good things will happen if you just take the chance.
I think that's a massive part of it, isn't it? That we have to be open to these
Yeah.
possibilities. Because and I think so many of us live closed lives, and that's something. Well, I did it for years, and I credit menopause with changing that for me, But there comes that time when it's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do it now, when am I going to do it? And we are, much more conscious, I think, when we hit 50 that, the clock is ticking down.
Yeah.
So we need to make the very most of it and make those decisions that may feel really uncomfortable, but actually can bring such bounty, can't they? I mean, as it has for you, that, you've had hurdles to get over, but I think you've taken a positive approach to each of those hurdles. It's like, okay, what can I make out of this rather than what is this doing
Yeah.
to me?
And I think the thing is as well is that everyone has their bucket list or list of things that they want to do, but lots of people don't do them. They talk about doing them, but they don't actually do them. And for one of the things that I really wanted to do, I've always wanted to write a book and I've always wanted to live in a little house by the sea. Like those were two things that it was like, oh, wouldn't that be lovely? It's like, well, I can't afford a house by the sea. I'd love to, but I can't right now. But when I got divorced, I went and I found a little cottage that was literally on the beach in Cornwall. And I spent a week there and I wrote a book on how to get divorced amicably in that week. And for me, that was one of the best weeks of my life because it was just me alone in this little cottage. I would type, look out at the sea, and when the tide went out, I'd go for a walk on the beach and then I'd come back, drink some wine in the evening, sit in my pajamas, keep writing, and it was just amazing. So it was like I could tick those things off. I've had a little house, lived in a little house by the sea, and I wrote a book. And so that was great. And there's certain places and things that I've wanted to like do and see that I've never been to. I mean, just last night, for example, I was talking to my son about what should we do for Christmas, and we were talking about all sorts of options. And I said, I've always wanted to go to Norway, and I've never been to Norway. And I was like, well, why don't we just go to Norway? And so then it was like, now I'm planning a trip that we can go, the two of us, and go and do something like that. So I think it's about identifying what it is you want. And sometimes you don't know, but you just know you want something different or more or something out of the day to day that you are doing every single day, the grind, and just going, well, I can do that. And it doesn't have to be resigning from your job and backpacking. You can just go, well, it's a bank holiday weekend coming up. I'm going to go and do what I did in about May this year. Last minute, booked a shepherd's hut in the Yorkshire Dales, and I took myself off to the Yorkshire Dales and stayed in the shepherd's hut and went hiking for a couple of days on my own. Went out and ate meals on my own, sat and had a little log fire on my own, and it was absolutely brilliant because I just felt alive. And so I think if people can find little nuggets in their life that just make them feel more alive and more, it just feels a little bit more interesting and exciting, that starts to shift the way you feel about everything. And when you take the little step to do something different, you'll start to open yourself up to bigger things that you can do. And before you know it, you've actually got a far more interesting and exciting life than just what you were always doing. And that's, I think, what I would love someone to take away from this.
I absolutely love that. Honestly, that's brilliant. And you've just given me a great idea because I wanted to write a book. I've written the book. I can tick that one. But I've always wanted to live in a house next to the sea. But I think I've got to move to the sea. Whereas you've just told me I can go for a week
Yep.
or a fortnight. I can go and test it out. I can just go and do that. And I work for myself too, so I can just do it. Oh, I've got to find somebody to feed the cat.
But you
Apart from
can,
that,
and we've just
yeah.
went, so the sailing trips I was talking about. So this is another whole different thing. I love sailing. Okay, I absolutely love it. And
Well, you did a big sail,
I
didn't you?
did. So
Hang
that
on a
was
minute.
probably the
Let's what?
catalyst.
So let's tell the list. Let's remind the listeners of your big
Yeah,
sail.
so this probably was the start of me going, yeah, I don't want to just have the same old life. It's when my kids were very little; they were 3 and 5, and I decided I couldn't stand doing another load of laundry and just doing like Groundhog Day, working, looking after little kids and laundry and household chores. And so I applied to take part in the Clip Around the World yacht race, and I sailed from Hull to Rio with 18 strangers on a boat, and that was completely bonkers and nuts, and I got a lot of grief for doing it. A lot of people criticized me, saying, how can you leave young kids, and it's dangerous and all of this stuff. But I left them with their other parent, and they were in good hands. But what it showed me when I came back, life hadn't changed one bit. I still had exact same laundry piles and the same thing. But what I knew was that I could do something to change my life if I wanted to. I just felt like I wasn't
Yes.
stuck in this feeling of being in a prison, that there's no escape. I can do what I want to do as long as I set my mind to it. Sometimes it takes a huge amount of work. That certainly did. But, that was, sorry, that was an amazing opportunity for me to open my eyes. And so since then, I've done sailing. And so Hamish, who runs this, I met him online, first of all, online dating experience. And that was a ridiculous, if anyone's done it, they will know what it's like. It's god awful, honestly. But instead of getting myself really depressed about it, I would view every opportunity, every date, and there were plenty of them, to discover a new type of person and realize what I did or didn't like. And it was just every one of them. I actually took notes because I was going to write a second book called Kissing Frogs, The Joys of Online Dating. But anyway, it was a really interesting experience. I was really glad I did it. But I finally met my handsome prince after kissing these frogs. And he's this lovely guy who runs an adventure travel company called Water by Nature, and he specializes in rafting. But the other part of his business is he does sailing. And so he takes people on sailing trips around Greece and Croatia and Sardinia, and we're about to do one in French Polynesia next year. So, it's really cool. And so because I love sailing and I love cooking, I go along and I serve as his deckhand. So we get to spend time together, and then I get to do this. And so I'm still working. It's not a holiday. I'm absolutely working, and it's hard work, but it's doing something that is completely, it's not going to make me a fortune, but it's fun to do. And then after we'd finished the sailing trip, we just stayed on in Croatia in a little house next to the sea and worked remotely because I could, and so it's like I all of a sudden I've got the freedom to do it. My kids have left home, and I think a lot of women find this. I'm in my midlife and my kids have left home, and who am I now? And what am I going to be now? And it's like, you can be anything and you can do anything. I mean, the freedom is amazing. So yeah, I think having the opportunity to do things like that. And when I tell my clients, I say, I'm afraid I'm not available this week or next 2 weeks. And they're like, oh, are you going somewhere nice? And I'm like, yeah, I'm actually going to go work as a deckhand and be like a cook and, sail a yacht. And they're like, huh? Because it doesn't relate to, you do corporate technology, B2B marketing. How does that align? And it's like, it doesn't, but it gives me this balance, and it's cool.
It is brilliant. And I think as we get older, that idea of a portfolio career, does come out. I mean, if you look at what I do, so I don't very often share on here, but I still do some corporate writing. And I have shared that every year that, there's a company that comes back and I write their annual report and I write their sustainability report, and I cross my fingers they'll come back, and they do. And then that gives me a base from which I can do everything else. And I do my mentoring and I do my magnificent midlife, and I get advertising from the Mutton Club, from the blogs that I write. I don't make any money on the podcast, but it's a great fun thing to
Exactly.
do. And then I'm studying for a master's in
Wow.
gerontology, just because I can. I will finish that at the end of this year. And I never could have appreciated doing that in my youth. I would have understood, how you do that. But, you make it work. And I do Airbnb as well. So it all kind of, this big mishmash comes
Yeah.
together, and it enables me to live a different life. And it's certainly a life less ordinary. It's certainly, I don't know what's coming from one day to the next.
I think the thing is that you get. I see it now with. I mean, my kids have just finished school, and you see they get into this thing of you have to do your schooling, and then you go to uni, and then you get the job, and then you climb up the career ladder, and it's so linear. Like everyone is like, it's linear.
Yes.
It doesn't have to
Yes.
be linear.
No.
Yes, there's definitely merit in getting some good solid experience in whatever you're doing, and or having part of your life being possibly the boring bit, the bit that you have to, the bit that pays the bills. But it doesn't have to be everything. It's like when I left my job, and I was like now going, oh, I'm not going to get hired, and it's going to impact who's going to hire me going forward, because I'm not going to have this nice consistent linear career trajectory. I'm like, who cares? I'm 50 something, and now who cares? What am I aiming for? What is the top of the ladder? What is there? Like, it's not like there's a pot of gold or anything. You've got to have happiness at every rung of the ladder. That's happiness or contentment or excitement or even shitty bits. It all makes an interesting story. And if you're just climbing the ladder one foot in front of the other all the time with no end in sight, life can feel very dull and very dispiriting. And so I think just trying to shake it up a little bit, doing a few different things, and it could be anything. I mean, you could be really good at painting and then join a painting class, or you could be loving singing and you join a choir. It could be anything, but just do something beyond what you always do to make it a bit better.
And I know, obviously, I know I am certainly speaking from a position of relative privilege, because I have reasonable financial security. I still need to work. I can't just not work. I need to earn income. But what I've tried to do is be creative about how I earn that income. So I mentioned I do Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever shared that on the podcast before. But that now that the kids are all gone, they're not around, I can do that. I've got the space, so I can make some money out of an asset that I have, which is useful. And I think if we can be creative about the possibilities, and like, for example, I haven't done it yet, but I've discovered this brilliant site called Trusted House Sitters. And you can literally go and stay in somebody's house and look after their cat. And my cat is crying outside the window yet again. I think I'm going to have to lock him in the house when I record podcasts now, because he keeps crying. But I thought he was dying yesterday, so I'm quite happy that he's crying today. He's come back and he's crying. But anyway, where was I going? Oh yes, Trusted House. It's just the cat sitting. You can go somewhere and not spend
Yeah.
any money. You could literally just, okay, you've got to pay your travel to get there, but you could do it in the little house by the
Yeah.
sea. There are such places. So there are all sorts of possibilities for doing that. There's also, my stepson did this amazing thing called Workaway. And you can go and volunteer and work in return for your board and lodging.
Exactly.
So again, you've only got to pay for your travel to get there. So there are all sorts of possibilities, even if you don't have the money, or you don't, you have limited time. But I think also at this age, hopefully our mortgages are getting a little bit less if we bought them a long time ago. So there's more flexibility in terms of time,
Yeah.
hopefully, and more, financially
Well, I
as
think
well.
there's so
Hopefully.
many options. I mean, in order to fund my interrailing, I Airbnb'd my whole house. I it took a vast amount of work to declutter all the personal stuff. I had to lock everything in the garage. I had to redo a bathroom because there was a complete state, but I did it. And then I had a management company that ran all the bookings, did everything, but that gave me income to live on every month while I was doing it. And since I've come back, because I don't have children in the house anymore, I've now got a lodger who pays me and uses one of the rooms, and he's barely there. He just needs a room Monday to Wednesday night, and then he goes home to his family. He works further away, and it's so I get additional income without any real effort from my point of view, and I can just use that to supplement my my travels. Or, for example, I've got a client who needs something written, and I can charge a flat fee. And instead of going, oh, I'm going to have to now work this evening, I go, that is paying for my trip to Malaga next weekend. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so it's
Yes.
finding unusual ways to make a little bit of extra money so that you can then go and do these fun things, whatever that fun thing is. I mean,
Yes.
I love travel. Not everyone loves travel, but it's whatever is the thing that inspires them. But on the travel thing, I know a lot of women. There was particularly one woman on one of my Glamoraks walks who had never traveled anywhere alone, like ever. Like, she'd never gone on a plane without her husband or someone. And so for her, she flew from, I don't know, Leeds or something to somewhere in Spain. Her husband dropped her off and her brother picked her up. All she had to do was the flight on her own. But for her, that was a massive leap. Massive. It was huge. But she did it. And she was so proud of herself because she actually did it. For other people, they have a real fear of going and eating on their own because they find that really intimidating. It's not. Honestly, take a book, people watch, just own it. It's brilliant. I'm a big fan of it. But the other thing is, there's a mindset of, oh, I'm too old to do that. I can't do that kind of thing anymore. It's for younger people. Again, sod that. There is a woman who is about to go on one of Hamish's trips. She's about to go raft the Zambezi River, which, unless you've ever done whitewater rafting, the Zambezi is a big grade 5, big water river. So she's doing that, followed by a safari. And then after that, she's going to join him in Papua New Guinea for another, even more wild, off the beaten track, whitewater rafting, kayaking, and she's 71. And yeah,
Wow.
he's got several clients, women who travel on their own, and they're all in their 70s. And they jump off cliffs, they do everything. And it's all about a mindset. If you choose to think, I'm old, or I'm past this age now, therefore I should do whatever people that age are supposed to do, well, then you become that. But if you think, well, sod it, I'm going to go and raft down a river, you can. Even if you physically can't, find a company that, or someone that will go with you, or something that will enable you to do it, because it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I for years I have been so frustrated with my mum because after my dad died, she would not go traveling by herself. So she was really limited. Either I had to go or a friend. She wouldn't even go on a group tour by herself because she had this idea that other people would take pity on her, and it would be if they talked to her, it would be out of pity. And I just thought that's so sad, I mean, if somebody talks to me, it's because I'm flipping interesting and I've got lots of really cool stuff to talk
Exactly.
about, but that was so, I really hope that attitude is going away, but I do see it
Yeah.
still in some women who will say they can't go away because they'd be embarrassed about imposing on other people, in a group.
All I
I
can
mean, it's
say to
just
that is claim your
bonkers.
space. You have earned the space and own
Yes.
it. But I think one of the things about traveling on your own, the act of doing it is enjoyable and it stretches you and whatever. But what you will get even more, even if at times on the trip you're slightly uncomfortable or slightly lonely or slightly whatever, when you come back, what you get is actually, the gift is afterwards when you come back, and then you feel so much more empowered, and you've got these memories. The first Christmas I spent after I got divorced, and it was my ex-husband's turn to have the children, and I was going to be entirely on my own. And I'm from South Africa. I've got no family in this country. So it was like, well, friends had invited me, but I was going to be like that. Oh, I'm going to be the single person sitting at their Christmas table, and I'm going to be awkward, and it's going to just be like reminding me that I'm not with my kids. It's going to be rubbish. So I was like, no, sod that. So I booked a trip to Jordan on my own with a tour group. And I went and I met a bunch of other people. Some were couples, some were families, and some were singles. I had the best time of my life. I spent Christmas Day in Petra. I spent Boxing Day riding a camel in the desert, and it was like this. It was like it goes down in history as probably one of my best Christmases of all time. Instead of sitting there being, oh, I'm so lonely and sad, and I haven't got my kids. It's how you choose to flip it and do something that is empowering. And because I did that, I thought I can do that. Wasn't scary. I can do other stuff alone. So anyone who's listening to this and thinking, either my husband partner doesn't want to do anything with me, they're not interested, they want to play golf, they don't want to do anything, so what? Do something on your own or with mates. And if you don't have a partner, again, just go and do things for you, because you've only got one life. There is a quote from that Mary Oliver poem called Summer Day, which is something like, what will you do with this one wild and precious life?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
honestly, make it count.
It's so funny because I think I did that same trip. So I joined. So there was one year where my son had gone off to be with his dad, and I didn't have anybody to go traveling with, and I went to Jordan, and I went on a trek through Wadi Rum, and I stayed in a tent, and yes, it was other couples or friend, groups, and then I went to Petra, and it was amazing. It was so
Yeah.
brilliant. And yes, I just thought I can do anything if I can do that. And it's actually really, when you're doing something like that, it's the activity as well, isn't it? It's like the conversations that we had on the Glamoraks walks. People talk when they're
Yeah.
walking. If you're walking alongside somebody and you're sharing around the campfire, and you're putting up your tents together, or you're hoping that your guide will help you put the tent up because you really haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue. Then you establish relationships very quickly. And actually, I'm still connected to people from that trip. And it's over 10 years ago now on social media. I'm still
Yeah.
connected to them, which is lovely. And I see their lives and they see mine, and we comment on them. And it's a really nice connection because we had that shared experience. And
And I think
yeah,
sometimes as well, when you go to
brilliant.
places like that, there is a natural disconnection. You don't have signal, you're not attached to your phone or device.
Yes,
And so you're forced to have more
yes.
human conversations. And I think COVID it really did something weird to the whole world in terms of everyone becoming more isolated. They don't go out and socialize
Mm,
as much. I noticed a huge drop off in my
yes,
own friendship circle. People weren't going out as much afterwards. There was just less getting together. And people seem, because they work at home remotely, you can get very lonely and very isolated. And loneliness is a thing that
yes,
I've dealt with a lot, especially before I met Hamish, but even since then, he travels a lot and I'm on my own a lot. And it's like, well, I can sit and choose to be alone, or I can take myself outside. So I recently joined the local sailing club here in York. I mean, the sailing is interesting because it's a very narrow river, and but it's made me go out and meet some other people. And when I've gone and done like multi-day hikes up the Northumberland coast, for example, the hiking alone is lovely, but it's when you stop at a fish and chips shop or something, and then there's someone else sitting there, like an elderly man sitting there, and you end up sitting and having a chat to them about their local area because they've lived there their whole life. And you have this human interaction with people, and it's real, and it's what I imagine it was like in the olden days before we all glued to our phones, like just yesterday we went to Betty's for breakfast in York, and there was a girl sitting at a table next to us, and she was on her own, and she immediately struck up a conversation by commenting on Hamish's t-shirt. And before you knew it, we chatted to her, we gave her a whole bunch of tips about what she should go see in York and places she should go and explore. And she had just come over from the States for 4 days to go and travel around on her own before flying back. And I just think if she hadn't been brave enough to say, make a comment, she wouldn't have got all the inside local knowledge that we gave her about, oh, go try this, don't do that, go there. And I think if you're brave enough to just make that social thing, which most British people are quite reserved. They don't typically do that. They don't necessarily start up that conversation. They keep themselves to themselves. But I think if you can be a little bit brave and just say, try to talk to someone, put yourself out there, join a group, your whole world will open up and it will become a little bit less ordinary. So, just be brave.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, follow, and share it. Also, giving a 5-star review really helps get the word out. You'll find the show notes at magnificentmidlife.com. That's also where you can get my book, Magnificent Midlife, Transform Your Middle Years, Menopause, and Beyond. Make the very best of your next chapter. Help me change the world, one magnificent midlife woman at a time.